WP Speedfix. In this video, we're going to talk about alternatives to Nitropack. We get asked about a lot. We have this blog post on our website. If you go to WPSpeedfix.com, Nitropack-alternatives, you'll get it. And pretty much there's two reasons why customers or people come to us asking about alternatives to Nitropack. The first one is cost. Nitropack can get pretty expensive if you have a lot of traffic. And then the second one is it often, or more often than not, doesn't solve core web vitals issues completely. Often it can make the site much faster, but it can create a lot of layout shift or CLS, which means it's still failing core web vitals and you haven't really solved the root cause of the problem, even though it's an expensive solution. For the most part, you can get a better experience with a manual optimization as opposed to using Nitropack. Nitropack's kind of like a brute force, very heavy duty, heavy-handed optimization. It doesn't take into account specifics about your website. So let's talk about what we recommend in terms of alternatives. So first off, probably the biggest mistake we see is people using Nitropack, but they're using bad DNS hosting. So everything starts with your DNS hosting. So DNS hosting, domain name system hosting. So basically that turns web addresses into IP addresses. And if you're on the hosts or the DNS hosting that came with your domain name, it's probably slow. And most often we see that as GoDaddy DNS hosting. So typically we would say move the DNS hosting to Cloudflare first. And even if you don't switch Nitropack out, you'll get a speed boost or another fast DNS host. So if you go to this website, dnsperf.com, you'll see DNS hosting speeds compared. And Cloudflare is almost always in the top 3 worldwide. The microphone's being funny. So top 3 worldwide, and it's free. So you can use Cloudflare without any of the other services and just use it as a DNS hosting service. So typically that's what we would recommend. So fix your DNS hosting before messing around with any Nitropack stuff. If you are planning to keep Nitropack, if you don't find an alternative, let me fix this microphone. What's going on? Typically we'd recommend using the plugin called FlyingPress. What that does, I'll just load it up here. 1 second. It's free. So what it does, this plugin here. So this will make Nitropack work better. So what that does, that starts background loading, or does a few things. It does just-in-time preloading, and it does background loading of pages as well. So it makes Nitropack work better. Just-in-time preloading, if you go to this website, instant.page, this is a tool in itself. You can use this instead of FlyingPress. FlyingPress is better. It's for WordPress. If you don't have WordPress, Instant Page is what you should use instead. So basically, there is a delay between when you hover and when you click on something. So you see there, that was 2 seconds. But what just-in-time preloading does, it starts loading a link as soon as you hover over it. So it's already started to load before you click it. So you kind of cheat the latency. So it started background loading the page already before I clicked. So you in this case, it made it 300 milliseconds faster. But if I'm sitting over this link for a second or two, that can be 2.5 seconds. The page can have fully loaded in the background. So when I click it, it loads nearly instantly, hence instant.page. FlyingPress does a similar thing, but it will also start to load all the links from the page before you even hover on it. It just sits there in the background doing it. So we'd recommend that. There is another plugin that does an even more aggressive version of this. So we'd recommend using a combination of both. This one here, speculative loading plugin from the WordPress performance team. So what this does, this is a newer version of what FlyingPress does, or a different version of it. So it won't just load the HTML, it'll load the entire page. So the combination of the two, speculative loading and FlyingPress, will make a huge difference to speed, and it'll get more out of Nitropack. It will drive your costs up substantially. So keep that in mind, because you're going to be loading significantly more stuff, even though it's faster. So just keep that in mind. So if you're going to keep Nitropack, do that. I think that might be mentioned on this post. Maybe we have another post about Nitropack reviews, and it's mentioned there. So anyway, those two would be the places to start before looking for alternatives that will make things better. You need good hosting. We say this all the time. We see people on $2 a month hosts, then they want fast site, want to pass core vitals. Cheap hosting is cheap for a reason. It's crap. It's low quality. It can't have a lot of load. You're basically, the price difference between good hosting and cheap hosting is the price of a cup of coffee versus the price of a nice lunch. So it's false economy going with a $2 a month host. So we recommend Cloudways, cways.net, probably for most, particularly anyone who's interested in performance. probably for most people reading this, Cloudways would be a better fit than their existing cheap host if you're on cheap hosting. So check that out. And the prices are cheap. You can get a basic server for 10 or 15 bucks a month, so dirt cheap. Okay, in terms of alternatives, you'll get a better experience using good hosting, Cloudflare with the APO service, and either WPRocket or FlyingPress plugin, and some manual optimization. So we'd recommend switching out to Cloudflare. So Cloudflare APO is $5 a month, automatic platform optimization. So with Cloudflare on its free plan, what it's doing is content delivery network. So if you're not familiar, content delivery network is a network of servers around the world that host some part of your website. That's what Nitropack is doing as well. It's a type of content delivery network. And Nitropack has a bunch of optimizations on top. APO is another optimization where Cloudflare will cache the entire page on their network, so it'll speed things up even faster. And then, so that's $5 a month. And then the Cloudflare paid plan, which I think is $25 a month if you go monthly, or $20 a month if you go yearly. That does everything pretty much Nitropack does. So it's a little less aggressive, but you'll get a similar result to Nitropack using Cloudflare's paid plan. And then on the hosting itself, you need some sort of caching or optimization plugin. So we'd either recommend WPRocket or FlyingPress. So WPRocket is more user-friendly. So I'd say if you're a DIYer and not super technical and you just kind of want to install something and have it work, WPRocket is the way to go. If you want as fast as possible, we'd say go with FlyingPress. I already have it loaded up here. FlyingPress has a lot more features and it's a lot more aggressive. You'll get a better result with it, but some of these optimizations, similar to Nitropack, could actually send you backwards because they're too aggressive in some cases. So I'd only go with FlyingPress if you're more technical or you know what you're doing, or if you have a developer. They also have something called Flying CDN, which again is very similar to Nitropack CDN and Cloudflare's APO. An important point, you never want to stack two CDNs on top of each other. You only want to use one. So if you're going to use a CDN service, which you should, only use one. Don't use two together because you're basically making the traffic go further. It has to go from the user to the first content delivery network to the second content delivery network to the hosting. So you're adding in more steps there and it'll make things slower. It adds more latency. It will also break your caching because each one of those layers does some form of caching, which means it has a copy of the website or some copy of the website files. And if you have multiple layers like that, typically they'll start to conflict, or one will be clear and the other one won't clear, and they mismatch it. So only use one content delivery network. We see all the time people set up Cloudflare and then they pay for the content delivery network from WPRocket or FlyingPress. Only use one CDN. If you use two, you'll get a bad result, bottom line. There's a few other plugins we typically use here. Perfmatters for fine detailed optimizations. There's a lot of overlap between these plugins, so keep that in mind. So there's a lot of, particularly Perfmatters and FlyingPress, there's a lot of overlap between the two. Our preference when we're doing speed optimization work with customers is WPRocket and Perfmatters together. That gives us kind of the reliability and simplicity of WPRocket and then the kind of technical fine detail work of Perfmatters. We just find WPRocket to be more compatible. And one of our rules with speed optimization is reliability over speed, because if the site's unreliable or it's down, that's zero speed, basically. So we always want to focus on reliability first, speed second, because, there's nothing that's going to drive users away more than an unreliable site or a site that's down. They'll put up with a slow site, but they won't put up with a site that's down. They can't access it. So that's why reliability is always number one for us over performance. You'll find over aggressive optimizations tend to break websites. And send core vitals backwards. We use WP Optimize. This is an alternative for caching. It does a bunch of stuff. We largely use it for database stuff. That's one thing. One limitation of services like Cloudflare's APO service or Nitropack is they can't optimize the database or anything inside the hosting. So often it's kind of a patch over the top of underlying problems with the site configuration. So keep that in mind. Whenever you're doing speed work, you always want to diagnose the root cause of the speed problems first before hammering a bunch of optimizations on top over that. It's kind of, when we see people talking about speed all over the web, people tend to just throw out recommendations, minify something, use this, use that. But the first step should always be to troubleshoot what's going on under the bonnet, figure out what the problem is, and then find the solutions for the problem. Not just throw random changes. Use two CDNs, for example, is something we see all the time. Because one is fast, so two must be better, right? So just keep that in mind. You want to troubleshoot the problems. probably in terms of, looking at how your site is loading now, this Core Web Vitals report, which you can run from our website under here. I'll just go back here. Under here, free Core Web Vitals report. So there's no opt-in required, so go check that out. That'll give you a pretty report that looks like this, that will give you an overview of how your site is performing. So this is the Nitropack website, so you can actually see other people's websites. You can see competitor websites as well. So this is the last month, or this is September. So this data lags behind by 6 weeks or so. This report auto-updates on the second Tuesday of each month. So if you make one for your website, keep that report, and it will update every month, essentially. And these are the 3 core vitals metrics. So LCP, this is how fast the site's loading. LCP is largest contentful paint. It's when the biggest piece of content on the page is loaded. And this needs to be 75% or more green to be in the passing zone. So Nitropack's doing well here. So Nitropack is fast. There is some INP. So this is how quickly the site responds to requests. And this is very common when we see aggressive JavaScript optimizations. And the reason for this is because if you've optimized the JavaScript too heavily, yes, the site will load fast, but once the user goes to interact with it, the JavaScript then loads and adds a delay into whatever they're doing, scrolling, clicking on something, using a search, using an opt-in. And then we have layout shift, and this is the most common problem we see with Nitropack now. It can make sites fast, but it often introduces layout shift. So this is their own website, and they're having layout shift issues. So we see this all the time. So you want to look at all. So this one, LCP is speed. So there's no doubt Nitropack makes things faster. Whether or not you can get your site into the passing zone really depends on what the root cause of your speed problems are. If you have some database issue, then Nitropack's not going to help there. If you want to explore this report, it also has historical data here. If you click these tabs on the left, you can see what's been going on over time. So there's a lot of, this report's pretty detailed in terms of what it can do. If you want to dig into your speed further, we have this tool we built called Vital Signs Tracker. So it is a Core Vitals monitoring tool, and I'll just open one of these screenshots so you can see what's going on. So what this does, this grabs the speed of every page, or grabs the speed of every user session and every page load on the website, puts it into a database so we can run reports on it. So this example here is a WooCommerce cart page, which is quite slow. And you'll see here it has the Core Vitals metrics across the top. So if you want to get detailed performance data on your website, that is a good tool to use as well. And there's a video there on our website that explains how it works. But that's pretty much it for Nitropack Alternatives. What else do we have here? That's pretty much all there is in the post. There is some notes here on, other optimizations that you should look at. Image optimization, we use either the plugin ShortPixel or EWW Optimizer. We lean towards EWW now because it can use the hosting to compress the images. Again, content delivery networks not like Nitropack and Cloudflare will compress the images, but you're always better to do it on the hosting because it's done one time, and then that file is saved as a smaller file size. Whereas with a content delivery network, the file needs to be compressed every time it goes through it. So it's not ideal, it's not optimal. And there's some other things you want to look at fixing as well. You want to fix huge pages. So none of these tools are going to fix pages that are massive, so really fat pages. And typically once a page is over 3 megabytes, it's probably going to fail Core Web Vitals just because there's so much data to download. So just keep that in mind. None of these tools, and WPRocket and Cloudflare, are not going to fix massive images, which is a very common problem we see. Even on blog posts where you might have content writers using Canva, and Canva by default downloads in PNG format, which is very big versus JPEG format. So often you can end up with a lot of content pages that are 5 megabytes plus. So none of these tools will really fix that if you've got that issue. The other thing is 404 errors and broken code. They're not going to fix that either. They'll arguably make it worse. So you want to run an SEO audit tool on your site as well and just make sure you've got no 404 errors. The most common problem we see with our speed work is a 404 error in the footer or the header of the site. So that's a site-wide issue, and different browsers handle 404s differently. So some browsers will just freeze. They'll have this freeze feeling for like 2 seconds while it processes that error, trying to figure out what to do with it. So checking for 404 errors is important, and none of these tools can fix that. And same with broken code. If there's something wrong in the code, something erroring out, they can't fix that either. That's pretty much, I'll leave it at that for the video. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of detail on the post there, and we talk about pros and cons. And I've shown you some tools. The other tool that you might be interested in is our free site speed test tool. So this takes about 90 seconds. Again, there's no opt-in required, and it will give you detailed recommendations on how to fix your site or where it's slow or what's slow. if you are using Nitropack right now, you'll need to turn it off to get a good kind of report. Otherwise, it's kind of reporting on the Nitropack's optimizations as opposed to what the site is actually doing itself. So that's pretty much it. If you want to learn more, head over to our website, wpspeedfix.com, and we have this free audit if you want our help. We do site speed optimization, we do technical on-page SEO and SEO audits. So if you're interested in getting more help with the website, request a free audit here, and we'll have a look at your site and tell you how we can help, and we can go from there. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, post a note in the comments, and we'll get back to you. Cheers.